Namo tassa. This time I will just talk a little bit about that concept of being human and the difference that we have compared to animals. There was something posted from Goenka just because there was a question about actually different dharma, like Swadharma, our own dharma, and Paradharma, or the dharma of others. And it's about, of course, the practice again. But the point and that Goenka makes there in his response is something that I have also mentioned before, of course, just to give a little idea about the difference between humans and animals in that sense. Of course, according to some science, studying biology and animals, they consider some species very simple. Talking about species with a brain and a nervous system, sentient beings, some are very simple and some are considered intelligent animals. But that's according, of course, to some humans. But the point here is about, again, practicing Dhamma. Just relating a little bit to the video I made just before. And exactly, again, about the fear of death. At least humans and sentient animals in some ways share that notion of fear of death, but not in the same way. And that's what makes a difference. And basically, in another video, I have mentioned that sometimes I tell people that they should be like animals in the sense of being or looking at things in a more simple way and being able to be more simple and not thinking so much or overthinking. And that exactly relates to that extra faculty that humans have, which is supposed to make us intelligent compared to other species. And that's the main difference, as we have supposedly that intelligence of the faculty of self-observation as self-reflection. First of all, the idea of the awareness of the self and the context around us in our environment, and being able to reflect on that. But as I want to mean first, that way, and as I've explained before, that unfortunately for most humans become a negative point, and basically exactly the source of suffering. Actually, you can see it that way, and that's why I say sometimes if humans can actually consciously, with awareness, decide to live and think the same way like animals, but with awareness, that would help them a lot, exactly make their life a lot easier, exactly for that difference. So the idea of the faculty of self-reflection, and self-reflection not only about the self and the meaning of life, but also from the past and memories, and also for the future in imagination, and exactly, again, that brings that extra source of suffering, actually, for beings that are supposed to be more intelligent, because it brings the whole idea of anxiety and stress and worry. And in that sense, again, animals fear death and definitely don't have the capacity to, for most at least, to accept that notion without any problem. Any animal pretty much will fight for life, right? But only when death seems to be coming, approaching, right then, at that moment, then when they start to feel that they might die, then there is that strong reaction. And exactly as in psychology, of course, the whole notion of, condition reflex in fearful situations, let's say, and the fight or flight thing. So animals will have that instant reaction, uncontrolled, not able to really think and reflect on the why and how of this situation. They will just try to stay alive, one way or the other. But at the same time, the rest of the time, when life is okay and they don't feel threatened, they don't really worry about that. They don't really reflect on that. They don't really reflect on the meaning of this life and that one day they might die. But humans, with their intelligence and that extra capacity, mental capacity, they spend a lot of time, or they waste a lot of time also around that concept, reflecting on their nature and the nature of this life, the meaning of this life, and that they're going to die, and they might die one day, of course, but when, how, they don't know. The suffering of not knowing, again, lacking the control, the insecurity. So again, that becomes a burden, actually. So in one way, of course, what makes us human compared to animals is that extra capacity, extra faculty to reflect and self-observe and try to figure out things. And that's exactly the point with Dhamma. And practicing Dhamma and actually having to practice meditation, then you will understand, you will have the proper insight, vipassana, into our true nature. And that's exactly what will make you a wise being as a human, and with that capacity that humans have. So you can become a wise human being because you have understood your true nature and then the meaning of life, of existence, and the why and how of things in general, like that. And so that's what makes us different from animals or insects. Animals cannot do that, right? Insects cannot do that in general. And so that capacity should help us to detach from the bondage of suffering in existence. And that's exactly the part where it is called wisdom. And humans can develop wisdom, animals can't, that way. Actually, I've met, of course, some animals that I consider a little wise, and definitely wiser than many humans that way. Exactly the same way as you see them, being able to see and observe the situation, but take it easy, accept it for what it is without panic. At the same time, you will see so many humans in the similar situation in the human context, and then it's full on at once panic mode, fight or flight, no thinking, no reflection, no ability to distance themselves and try to reflect on what's going on. Again, panic is always your worst enemy, and that's why a wise mind, a calm mind, is always your best advantage to deal the best way in any given situation. So again, humans have that extra capacity of increasing their suffering because of that extra faculty of self-reflection, and they can create drama in the mind, as many do or most do, unfortunately. And again, saying, oh, it's not, we are emotional beings, social beings that way, emotional. Yeah, well, again, that's your source of suffering. You want to be addicted to your emotions, to your social dependency or whatever, and all of this. Okay, do it. But then don't complain after that there's a lot of drama and that you feel so sorry for yourself and you feel that you play the victim role again. And why? Because you have used or misused that extra capacity that humans have in the mind to overthink things and overwhelm yourself with overthinking. And again, adding the whole idea of past, future, what might be, what should have not been, and everything, all this extra suffering that animals don't have time for. And that's why they can enjoy life much more than most humans, actually, because again, this human society, the way it has been created now, actually, I posted something about a very famous French writer, philosopher from that century of luminaries, who had exactly written that whole thing about the social contract and what you call civilized. Again, humans who consider themselves intelligent, smart, and of course more intelligent than animals in that sense, and also compared to some different civilization, and they call themselves civilized, right? We go back to slavery time and colonization time and meeting those more primitive societies that they considered uncivilized, even though they again lived more simply, closer to animal way, but in a wiser way, in a sense of being more in harmony with nature and not having all those extra mental disorders and drama addiction that the so-called civilized humans have developed in that crazy society, which has made a point to increase the level of stress and anxiety. And now, you have to work, and again, there's a notion of work schedule that has been developed purposely by the Rockefeller, of course, and Mr. Ford, to see how much they can push the people as far as modern slaves and give them a little break the weekend. But you spend the weekend basically in anxiety or stress and the fear of going back to work or back to this and back to that, and that will make you stressed or depressed. And nowadays, of course, the notion of burnout. Actually, again, I moved to Norway at the time, and I liked the Norwegian culture at the time for what it used to be. But I saw exactly the transition with new generation, both new generation in the society context and new generation with new people born. And that was a pretty nice society before, as far as respect and equality. And then it changed again, the same like everywhere else, and suddenly stress started to appear. It was kind of a new thing, that notion of stress, and to be able to take leave from work because of stress was a new notion that was not happening in that society before. And exactly, human so-called intelligence, extra faculty that most humans actually misuse, of course, and don't know how to use properly, only to increase the suffering in their life, instead of using it as a means, as it is meant, to reach wisdom. As the old adage, that you grow wiser as you grow older. Well, again, yes, that used to be at the time before, but obviously nowadays it doesn't, because exactly as we see the new generation, the younger people, they are already depressed, stressed, anxiety, autism, of course, but for other reasons too. And there's a huge increase in suicide in the young people. Why? Of course, it is very obvious when you look at it objectively, and also because it's part of the agenda. So unfortunately, that's the reality. And again, so at the end, you're human. As we say in Buddhism, you are lucky to be born human. There's not many opportunities in the whole of existence in the universe to be born human. There's not so many chances. So and you have that extra faculty of self-reflection and self-observation and some kind of awareness meant to develop a wisdom that will make you understand the meaning and intricacies of all that, of your own nature, of life in general, existence, and everything at the end. You can develop, if you go deeper and deeper in practice of Dhamma and meditation, then you will be able to figure it out. Figure it out. Anyway, but of course, then most people just misuse or don't even bother to seize that huge opportunity. They don't even realize that this is a huge opportunity, and they should concentrate on that mainly in their life, and they prefer to be caught up in whatever satisfies their very animal brain, the basic brain of Lobha Dosa, and what makes them feel comfortable or enjoying life, entertained or distracted with all these things, what they think makes them happy from the outside. And that is only bound to increase the suffering in their life, and of course the karma also will get worse and worse. So in that sense, if you don't use that capacity, you stay in instant reaction mode, right? Instant emotion. Whatever happens, instantly you have the reaction. No capacity to take distance in the mind and try to appreciate objectively what's going on and your response to that, which is again the idea of keeping a calm mind and to be able to assess properly and gauge what the best response is. So then in that case, when you don't do that, as most humans do, then you are indeed basically a barely evolved animal. Still, you are behaving still at the animal level. You are just a good Pavlovian dog, just conditioned so quick at once. And the main point with COVID, besides the business part and making a lot of money, was exactly a social experiment to check how much, again, they could control the people like that, and how many percent of the global population they could control that way, without people basically not having the ability to really reflect at once and say, no, wait, this is wrong, like this doesn't make sense. No matter how much nonsense that was, exactly, they wanted to check how much the people could be conditioned at once automatically without the ability to think for themselves and take a different response than what they wanted. So remember, COVID was a big social experiment, exactly to see how much control they had that way, to make how many percent of the population they could have as Pavlovian dogs for what's coming next, for what they prepare to do in the future, which they are already, setting up, putting in place. But they are already satisfied because ultimately 80% of the population just fell on right in, just at once, follow the rules, not questioning really, or maybe questioning a little bit, but not daring to think too much, right? No, that's just the way it is. That's what they say, so we must do. And that is a scary part of what the human society has reached, but again, that's the part of the agenda, and that's what they want. So, and again, back to that famous philosopher, writer, Jean-Jacques Rousseau in France, and the social contract is exactly that notion of being civilized is giving up with your freedom and becoming a good modern slave dictated by the institution of your society that put you in shackles, the shackles of the system, and you just accept and you don't think anymore for yourself, but you just follow the rules blindly. And with that, of course, which goes against nature, you increase your suffering, of course. And that's why, again, so many people have so much up and downs and so much drama in their life and their own drama, because of that uncontrolled mind. That faculty of self-reflection is so misused or unused, or really used in a counterproductive way. But then, if you do it the proper way, if you do the self-observation with some awareness, practicing properly Dhamma, again, as I said before, and it's simple, again, I mentioned that agenda and what they used COVID for, like that, the agenda of these people controlling the world, which are the worst kind of humans, right? They are the most evil kind of humans, the darkest. Their point is to destroy as much as possible, consciously or unconsciously, the notion of Dhamma in the world, and definitely not wanting people to be able to grasp the proper Dhamma within themselves. So their agenda is the opposite of Dhamma. So if you can practice Dhamma properly, and that's why there's less and less Dhamma, or less and less motivation to practice properly Dhamma in the young generation, because they're already caught up, already brainwashed into the opposite. Exactly referring to what I said earlier, why there's already so many issues in the younger generation that used to be only later in life before. But if you can practice properly Dhamma that way and have the proper awareness, then you can observe the truth within yourself objectively, understand your nature, the nature of life, existence. Of course, then you develop the wisdom, proper wisdom, pinya, and then that will, of course, erase the suffering, nirodha, and take away all that suffering, the mental suffering that so many humans have, and you will have used properly that faculty of self-reflection, self-observation that humans have, proper awareness, developed into wisdom, pinya, so you can set yourself free, going again the opposite direction from what the system wants. The system wants you to be a modern slave, obedient slave, now shackled. So the practice of Dhamma is the only thing that will really set you free from bondage, from all suffering,